Hey there, class of 2022. Welcome back. By now, all of you should have on your calendar Wednesday, April 7th at 8:20 at Southmore High School. All of you are coming back inside the building and taking the state mandate ACT test. So if you haven't done so already, designate that date, clear everything off your schedule, and make plans to be here for this important opportunity for you and your grades. Okay, so we concluded at the end of the first session that if any of you students have questions about the test, to reach out to myself or Ms. Clifton. Many of you have already done so. Let me share with you some of those questions in case you have the same question yourself. First question is, Mr. Oliver, I've already taken the ACT at least one time. I really don't want to take it again. Do I have to come take it on Wednesday, April 7th? The answer is yes. State law requires that to graduate, you must take the ACT on this designated date. Now, I understand some of you may be a little anxious about you have a score that you're already comfortable with. What if you don't score as well on this state mandated testing date? From my experience, the more times you do something, the better you get. More practice, the higher you're going to score. That being said, in case you don't do as well, there is something called a super score. And what that is by the ACT. There are 4 sections of the ACT. And what you will do is you'll take whatever section of it is the highest on one or more tests. So if the first time you took the ACT, you scored a 30 on the English, and the second time you only scored a 27, you definitely get that higher score. 30 carries over, no matter what your other sub-scores are. Another question was kind of ironic that Wednesday, April 7th is my birthday, and I always take off on my birthday. Do I still have to show up for school and take this state mandated test on April 7th? Well, the answer is you need to come take that test if all possible. You must take the test on the state mandated test either this spring or next spring, your senior year. If you wait to take it your senior year, the window of you graduating really shrinks, and for some reason you don't take it on that testing date, you may not set yourself up to walk across that stage to graduate. Okay, so I would recommend, unless you wake up sick that morning or you're quarantined, to go ahead and clear everything off your schedule, be here that day, do your best, and then afterwards go celebrate your birthday. So by now you should be making a habit of checking daily your school messengers, whether it be your school email account, your Infinite Campus account, your Odyssey account, or your Canvas Messenger. You should be checking one or more sources every single day to look for more links, some more information, or any updates or resources that may be available for you. Today we're going to continue on with our study session of March to the ACT, and we're going to focus on the math section of the ACT. Next week is spring break, so you guys won't be here, but you are going to be given a little bit of a homework assignment to begin working on your ICAP. When we come back from spring break, we're going to focus on the reading section of the ACT. And then the last week of March, on Wednesday, we're going to pull you guys out of your science classes, and we're going to focus on that science section of the ACT. So sit back. Today we're going to focus on the math session, and once again, continue to check those daily reminders for any information that may be vital for you scoring well. Okay, so the math portion of the ACT is going to allow you to use a calculator. In fact, when you're going through algebraic equations, you're going to want that calculator. So take time right now, as well as before the ACT, to monitor your calculator to make sure that it is approved by the ACT. If you can't read this, or if you want to read it further, go to ACT website, Google ACT calculator policy, and it gives you a step-by-step breakdown over which calculators are allowed and which ones are prohibited. Okay, so as mentioned before, you're going to want to make sure you've got that calculator and it is ready to go on test day. I want you a couple days before to make sure that you've got fresh batteries inside the calculator, but also have another set of batteries ready to go in your bag, in your purse, wherever you may be on your testing day. Make sure you've got backup. We had a young lady a couple years ago come up to us and take a test, and about halfway through her calculator stopped working. And she said, I know my calculator has fresh batteries because I checked them the other day. Well, come to find out, her little brother had changed the batteries in the remote control and took the good batteries and gave her the old ones that were basically obsolete. So make sure you've got an extra set of backup batteries with you just in case something bizarre happens. I also had a rather unique question somebody submitted. Said, well, Mr. Oliver, I use my calculator, but I also like to use pencil and paper. And in fact, I also like to use just traditional things like my fingers and toes. So on the test, can I count with my fingers and toes? And the answer is yes, but also no. Over the years, we've had several people use a variety of different things to calculate, and we realize that calculators are always going to be the best option. But if you have to use your fingers, that's fine. We'd recommend you keeping your socks and your shoes on for testing purposes, regardless if we have a mask on. Nobody wants to smell the aroma of your bare feet coming on this, particularly on testing day. In fact, a couple of years ago, we had an individual take their shoes off during the test, and the person next to them was so distraught looking at their toes that during the break, they went over to the person and asked them to put their shoes back on. The one particular reason why they wanted them to put their shoes back on is because their toenails were green. And they asked them, just out of curiosity, why do you paint your toenails green? The person looked over and says, that's not paint. Interesting. We hadn't even got to the science portion of the test, and there was already a foot fungus among us. So make sure your calculator is ready to go. Spring break is right around the corner. In fact, most of you next week will have a lot of time to enjoy a little bit of rest and relaxation. I do want to give you one little task to look at during this time period. In fact, we're not even in school on Friday. That may be a chance for you to knock it out before spring break begins. But look on your Canvas dashboard, and you should have an icon for ICAP 2022. Now, this is a state mandated task that you must complete. There's already been several different assignments that you guys have begun working on, or you should have begun working on. These must be finalized by this year, and it's a state mandated requirement for you to graduate. So the next couple of slides are going to show you how to log in, how to take those different tasks, wrap those things up. Remember, this is not that difficult. In fact, it's all about you, helping you understand exactly what career path you want to go down and the things that we can do at Southmore High School to help you make those dreams happen. So it's real important you answer these things in their entirety and get this thing finished as soon as possible, preferably by the end of spring break. Once you open up your Canvas and click on that ICAP, it's going to ask you if you're a junior or senior, and you are so close from being a senior, but you have to finish this first. Go ahead and click on the junior and progress to the next slide. Under your junior year, you have a variety of different tasks you must complete. Most of you have already completed these tasks. In fact, if you look at this, it goes back to the very beginning on November 6th. We began doing a career assessment and then going through different goals. We took a virtual tour of Moore Norman Technology Center, which, by the way, you have access until you're 22 years of age. So if college isn't for you, lots of different trades and skills you can learn there, free of charge until you're 22 years of age. Then we began working in February on updating your career plan, and then finally we're going to do a reflection phase. So look at the dates right there. It's a real simple task. Go ahead and complete this thing as soon as possible. And if you have any questions, ask myself or Ms. Clifton. If you see any of these reminders, that's our career tech individuals trying to tell you, hey, you have a couple of different tasks that are still incomplete. Wrap those things up as soon as possible. If you also have a question for one of them individually, you can reply to them. So hopefully you don't have many reminders and you've completed the majority of the tasks asked of you. Students, today we're going to focus on the reading section of the ACT, and next Wednesday we're going to finish up with the science portion. I want to remind you to continue to check your school emails, your IC alerts, Odysseyware, and Canvas messengers, or look at the school's website, Southmore High School's website, for our study strategies and links. So if you want to go back and review any of our previous sessions, or if you've missed our sessions, go to Southmore High School's website. You can click on March to the ACT Test Strategies, and there you'll see separate videos from each week of our presentations. You can watch them over and over again to make sure that you are equipped for the ACT. Okay, so by now all of you know that you've got a free sample test to take for the ACT. So this is just a sample test to give you a chance to be exposed to a variety of different questions and concepts that are going to be on the real ACT test on April 7th. If you haven't done so already, you're encouraged to take advantage of this free access by logging into the student.cambridgeed.com. Put your PIN number, which is your school ID or your school cafeteria number, put that in there as your PIN and begin practicing. Once again, this is a paced test where I'm only opening up a section of the test at a time to give you a chance to focus on just one section at a time. Once you get through with that section, I'll be notified. I'll open up the next section for the following week. So good luck, and go ahead and spend a little time over spring break. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and take the first two sections of the ACT. And then when we come back from spring break, if you have any questions, great opportunity to ask your classroom teachers. I took the practice ACT and I saw a couple of concepts that I was unfamiliar with. Can you help me with these? Ask those questions of those teachers. They'll be glad to help you out. Students, the next couple of slides are going to help you make sure that your laptop is ready to go for the test. So take a moment, read through the following items. It's going to help you make sure that your laptop has all the updates and is ready to go on the test. Remember, if you don't do this and your laptop struggles trying to download something during the test, that time you're going to miss is going to be vital time on the ACT. So go ahead and do this in advance so that you're ready to go on ACT day. Okay, so if you want to take a moment now, in the bottom corner, type in updates. Once you've typed in search for updates, you're going to see a little gray box that says check for updates. Go ahead and click that. Now that may take you a couple moments to download all the following updates, and it may ask you to go ahead and restart your computer before those updates are usable. Go ahead and do this in advance, and it may require you to do it a couple times between now and ACT morning. Students, if you have a Mac computer or any Apple product, it will not allow you to take the ACT on that item. If you'll email me as soon as possible or notify us when you arrive here, we can get you a separate computer, either a laptop or take you into one of our computer rooms. Once again, any Mac product or Apple product is not compatible. Call of Duty, high score.
Listen up, gamers. If you have the Xbox Game Bar downloaded on your laptop, you need to remove that or it will kick you off your ACT test. You probably won't get that time back if you do get kicked off, so make sure that you get that uninstalled on your computer.
Okay, starting this weekend, students, you need to get your body ready to go for the ACT. And part of that is making sure you get yourself into a routine. That routine should include getting a good night's sleep every single night. A lot of students make the mistake of waiting the night before the test, trying to go to sleep early and get a good night's sleep. Your body's not used to that, and in fact, you actually feel sluggish and tired throughout the entire time of the test. So starting right now, get yourself in a routine of going to sleep early, making sure that your body is charged up for the test, as well as making sure that you guys are eating proper meals, getting lots of food and beverages, okay? Also, I want you to charge your laptop up every single night. Just close the lid, charge it up on a nightly basis. That makes sure you get in a routine of making sure that your laptop is getting all the latest downloads as well as fully charged on a nightly basis. So the next morning, you and your laptop are ready to go. I want to remind you that in addition to the March to the ACT, Moore Public Schools is offering 3 separate boot camps. You can go to one or go to all of them. They're on the weekends and they're at each site. You're available to go to Moore, you're able to go to Westmore, you can go to South Moore's boot camp or all of them. The first one is going to be Saturday, March 27th at Moore High School from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. On Sunday, March 28th, it's going to be at South Moore High School from 2 to 8 p.m. And then on Saturday, April 3rd, Westmore will hold theirs from 10 to 4. Registration is limited. There are some spots for free and reduced lunch students, so make sure you go quickly to the counseling center and sign up for this.
All right, we are going to talk about the math portion of your ACT test. So the ACT is made up of 4 sections: reading, mathematics, English, and science. And today we are focusing on the mathematics portion. This is a timed test. You will have 60 questions to answer in 60 minutes. The questions that you're going to be answering generally follow this pattern. You have 24 pre-algebra and elementary algebra questions, 7 intermediate algebra questions, 9 coordinate geometry questions, 14 plane geometry questions, and then 4 trigonometric or higher geometry questions. When you're going through and answering these questions, you want to make sure that you are going to be a thinker and not a number cruncher. The ACT test is about your ability to think, not your willingness to do a lot of mindless calculations. Think about the quickest way to get to an answer and think about it as you're going through and working the problem. Do not be intimidated by what appear to be complex questions. Complex questions are often just an easier problem in disguise. Those word problems, if you will just read it, sometimes it is only asking you to add 3 or 4 numbers together, but you have to read the question to see what it wants you to do. Use common sense. When you get stressed, take a deep breath and stay calm. Don't overthink the problems. Most students will read a question and make it more difficult than it needs to be, so read the question and think about what it wants you to do. So when you're reading these questions, you want to make sure that you do get specific. Make abstract questions become more concrete by substituting numbers in for variables. If they're asking you about what happens when you add 2 odd numbers together, pick 2 odd numbers and look at what happens. See what happens there. Focus on the answer. You are not in Mrs. Hanneman's Algebra 2 class. You don't have to show all the work to get the full credit for the question. This is a multiple choice exam. You're going to bubble in a letter. So worry about getting the correct answers. Don't fret about the right way or the method that you're going to use. Just get the right answers. You need to get 40 of the 60 answers to correct for your math score to be over a 25. Look for patterns in your problems. Patterns can make some of the problems not only easier to solve, but a lot faster to solve. The guiding principle you want to follow is you want to work less but work smarter. You don't have to write out every single little step. When you're doing these again, I'm not grading your work that you're doing. I just want to know what that final answer is. Calculators are allowed on the test. You may use a calculator, but every question can be solved without a calculator. That is in the instructions of the exam. So calculator tips, think before you use it. Sometimes you waste time grabbing that calculator. Know your calculator. Know where to find that fraction bar. Know where to find the absolute value bars. Okay, so make sure you know your calculator. Practice using it the night before the test. But after you practice it, you might want to replace your batteries, or if you've got one of the rechargeable ones, make sure you plug it in and get it charged. If you have one that takes batteries, you might take some extra batteries with you to the test, just in case the batteries die while you're taking the test. When you're looking at a question, you have a 4-step method you can always think about if you're not sure how to answer the question. Ask yourself these 4 questions. What is the question? So go to where it actually asks you the question. What information am I given? What can I do with this information? And then when you think you have your answer, ask yourself, am I finished? Sometimes you have found X, but the question is asking you for the length of the rectangle, and you have to do 3x plus 2. And you have to find what that X that you found and put it back in to find the length of the rectangle. So always look at the answer and ask yourself, did I answer what they asked me to find? So am I actually finished with the question? Now, as for the type of score you want, there are a couple of techniques. One of them is, based on the score you want to get, you don't necessarily have to answer every question on the test. So if you are looking for a raw score of a 19 to a 21, bubble in numbers 31 through 60 the moment you get your answer sheet. You're not even going to consider those questions. And then you're going to go in and you're going to do the absolute best that you can do on numbers 1 through 30. So now instead of having an average of 1 minute per question, you have an average of 2 minutes per question. But these first 10 are usually the easiest. You really shouldn't be spending 2 minutes on each of those. Those should be much faster. If you get through number 30 and you still have time remaining, well, then you go through and you start answering number 31 and then 32 and then 33 until they give you, or they call time. You keep answering questions. Now, notice the ones that I bubbled in, I picked the last column. I pick one value, bubble it in for all the last 3 columns. Anytime you're picking a value to bubble in, you always pick the same variable. A lot of people think the end of the ACT is weighted more to either A or, well, the first column or the last column. So a lot of people just bubble in that last column whenever they're filling something in. But you can pick whatever column you want to bubble in. If you are aiming for a 22 to a 25, then you can bubble in the last 15 questions, so 46 through 60, and then you need to focus on numbers 1 through 45, answering them to the absolute best of your ability. If you have time remaining, start at number 46, keep answering the questions. If you're aiming for a 26 to a 27, then you can bubble in the last 10 questions and focus on the first 50. Again, answer them to the best of your ability. If you have any time remaining, then you can answer numbers 51 through 60. Now, I'm going to say this on the next slide too, but let me kind of stop here. Numbers 51 through 60, those are the last 10 on the test. The questions get more difficult as you go through the test, so those last 10 are usually the hardest ones. But statistically, numbers 51 through 55 are the most difficult questions. 56 through 60 sometimes are a little bit easier. So if you hit number 50, you've answered all of them, you still have time left. You might start with number 60 and work your way backwards on those last 10 questions. And that's also written here. If you're aiming for a 28 or higher, you have to answer every question. Go through, answer every question to the best of your ability. Make sure you do answer and you work numbers 56 through 60 because, again, they tend to be a little bit easier than 51 to 55. And so that last column, when you hit number 50 and you get to the last column, you might want to start at 60 and work your way backwards instead of going 51 through 60. Pay attention to time. If they've given you that 5-minute warning, you might go in and bubble in everything you have from there to the end so that you don't leave anything blank because you don't want to have any blank questions. Know when you need to skip a question. Time is the key to this test. So try to keep from getting bogged down. Almost everyone will skip some questions the first time through. So if you know you're supposed to be answering numbers 1 through 30 for the best of your ability, you go through and you hit one you're not sure about or it's just going to take you too long to read, skip it, go on. Now, make sure you put your next answer on the right line. When you get to the end of number 30, then go back through and go back to those questions that you had jumped over, that you skipped over. You don't want to leave anything blank, okay? So if you're skipping questions because you want to go back to them, just make sure you do go back to them later and fill something in for them. What do you do when you get stuck? A couple of options you can do is take a ballpark estimate. What answer looks reasonable in comparison to the given question? If they're asking you about an average for your test scores, well, it should be something that is between your highest and your lowest. If they give you anything that's bigger than your high or lower than your low, you should be able to throw those out. Eyeballing. When in doubt, use your eyes. It is especially helpful with geometry questions. In their instructions, it says not drawn to scale. But a lot of times it's drawn close to scale. Not perfectly, but close. So if you have no clue, if nothing else, eyeball it and put an answer down. Remember, answer all of the questions. Blank is guaranteed to be wrong, so don't leave any blanks. The questions get harder as you take the test. So number 1 is usually an elementary algebra question. And the last column is usually your upper level trig and geometry and advanced algebra questions. General information, take practice tests. Ways you can prepare for the exam. Take a practice test the week before your scheduled test. Don't try to take a practice test the night before. Take it a week before so you have time to kind of look over it and evaluate it. Don't stay up late the night before the test. Get some rest. Get up for the test, get ready for the test, like you're getting ready for school. It's a great routine to have, unless you usually run late to school, then don't do that. Use the bathroom before you take the test. And then don't worry about what other students are doing in the test room. If they got done before you, don't worry about it. You get to use all of the time that's allotted for that section. So use your time wisely and don't worry about what anyone else is doing. There are a lot of, one of the things we said was take a practice test. There are lots of websites you can go to take a practice test. This one right here is the Pioneer Library System, the More Public Library System. If you have their library card, then there's a great test prep service. You want to click up here on the online resources. And if you click up here on the online resources and then come down to research and homework and click on the A to Z database, then when you get there, you want to find the Learning Express Library Test Prep. This will give you practice ACTs, practice SATs, practice AP exams. But there are multiple tests that you can do in here. It will give you a timer in the top corner. It will give you, you go through and let you answer every question, give you what score you would have earned, and then it will turn around and let you click on any question and give you an explanation on any question, whether you got it right or wrong. You can go back in and look at how to work any question there. So this is a great resource. You also have ACT for Dummies. They have an online simulated ACT test. And if you're looking for a website that just has extra ACT questions that you can look at, crackact.org and .com, not .org. crackact.com has tons and tons of practice ACT questions on it. So last minute reminders from me. Take the ACT as many times as you can. The more you take it, the less stressful it is, the more lax you're going to be during the exam. So take it as many times as you can. You can raise your score, but if you only take it once, there's nowhere to move. But the more often you take it, the more likely you are to move up. So think positive and be persistent. When it is available to you, order a copy of your tests and answers. They're really not that expensive, and they'll send you a copy of the test booklet. They will send you a printout of your answers, and anything you got wrong, it will tell you what the right answer was. And you can go through and look at the questions you got wrong, look at what the questions were, figure out what it was you were supposed to do. One of the best ways to improve your score. They only do it certain times throughout the year on certain ACTs, so pay attention to the ones where they let you order those. Now, Mrs. Wilkes is going to answer some specific math questions and go back over a lot of those pointers that we had with you on the questions that are on the handout that you have in front of you. So I will turn this over to Ms. Wilkes.